Have you ever felt trapped in a relationship controlled by someone else? In this powerful story, Anna Harris, a successful psychologist, finds herself caught in a web of subtle manipulation after marrying the seemingly perfect man only to discover his unbreakable emotional dependency on his mother. From quiet betrayal to profound awakening, Anna's journey reveals the strength needed to reclaim personal freedom and emotional health. Experience the deep psychological insights as Anna courageously faces reality, breaks toxic bonds, and finds true love built on respect, independence, and genuine happiness. If you've ever questioned your relationships or struggled with setting boundaries, this story is for you. Don't miss this inspiring tale of emotional healing and personal rebirth. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications for more empowering stories about overcoming challenges and embracing your inner strength. I never imagined I could feel so alone while having everything I'd ever worked for. By the time I turned 41, I'd built the life I'd always envisioned. A successful clinical psychologist with a thriving practice, a stylish apartment overlooking the city, and a stable life. Yet every night when I returned home, loneliness quietly echoed in each empty room. It wasn't unhappiness exactly, just a subtle longing I'd long ignored. One evening over coffee, my best friend Lisa confronted me gently but firmly. "Anna, you've spent your life helping everyone else find happiness. When will you focus on your own?" Her words struck a chord. Reluctantly, I agreed to meet Matthew, a man she enthusiastically described as one of the good ones. Our first dinner was surprisingly easy. Matthew was charming, thoughtful, and genuinely kind. The connection felt instant and comforting. As weeks passed, our relationship blossomed effortlessly, warm conversations, unexpected flowers at my office, and quiet strolls in the city. But soon, subtle concerns emerged. Matthew frequently referenced his mother, Eleanor, in every decision he made. One evening at dinner in Matthew's family home, Eleanor welcomed me warmly but scrutinized every detail of my life with careful precision. Her polite yet probing questions unsettled me, awakening instincts I'd learned to trust professionally. Yet I brushed those concerns aside, trusting in my skills and believing I could manage the complexity ahead, unaware I was stepping into something far deeper than I'd imagined. As Matthew and I began seeing each other more frequently, my initial hesitation slowly melted away into a warm sense of comfort I hadn't known for a very long time. At first, it was simple gestures, the way he'd text me each morning, not with superficial sweetness, but with genuine questions about how I'd slept or what was on my mind. It was in those small, quiet details that I found myself truly opening up. One Saturday afternoon, we wandered through a bustling farmer's market, the air fragrant with fresh bread and coffee. I watched Matthew carefully select vegetables for the dinner he promised to cook that evening, noting how attentively he chose each tomato, each pepper. It was strangely endearing. When I teased him lightly about his meticulousness, he laughed, admitting, "It's something my mom drilled into me. Always choose the best, no matter how small the decision." At the mention of his mother again, I paused internally but quickly dismissed the slight tension that flickered briefly in my chest. After all, wasn't a man who respected his mother's advice a good sign? That night, true to his promise, Matthew cooked dinner at my apartment. He moved comfortably in my kitchen, as though he'd always belonged there. As I watched him from the doorway, his sleeves rolled up, humming quietly to himself, I felt a gentle warmth spreading within me. It was the kind of effortless intimacy that quietly erased all my earlier worries. We spent hours on my balcony afterward, sipping wine beneath a starry sky, our conversation flowing naturally from playful banter to deeper truths. "You know," Matthew began thoughtfully, "I didn't think I'd find someone who made me feel so comfortable being myself." His sincerity softened me. "I feel exactly the same," I whispered, surprised by the vulnerability in my own voice. He reached out and gently touched my hand, intertwining our fingers softly, making my heart beat quick and quietly beneath the calm. Yet even in those perfect moments, there were small intrusions. Like the evening his phone buzzed incessantly, pulling him reluctantly from our cocoon of warmth. He glanced apologetically at the screen. "It's my mom. Just checking in. She worries a lot." He stepped away to answer, leaving me alone briefly, gazing out at the shimmering city lights. A faint unease stirred again, momentarily disrupting my happiness. But when Matthew returned with his reassuring smile, explaining gently, "She just needed to know I'm okay," I quickly brushed aside my discomfort, chiding myself silently for being overly sensitive. As our relationship deepened, those moments became a minor, acceptable compromise in exchange for the happiness I was finally allowing myself to feel. After all, no one was perfect, least of all me, the psychologist who knew too well how easily fears could distort reality. Yet in the stillness of night, wrapped safely in Matthew's arms, I couldn't entirely quiet the voice within me, the professional, intuitive whisper cautioning me softly, "Be careful, Anna. Even happiness has its shadows." The night Matthew invited me to his childhood home to meet Eleanor, I felt quietly uneasy. The house was immaculate, almost too perfect, like a carefully staged photograph. Eleanor greeted us warmly, yet her gaze meticulously assessed every detail of my appearance. "Anna, it's wonderful to finally meet you," she smiled gently but coolly. Dinner started pleasantly enough, but Eleanor's polite curiosity soon deepened into subtle interrogation. "Your psychology career must be demanding," she said carefully. "Do you plan to maintain such a busy lifestyle once you start a family?" My fork paused midair. Matthew glanced at his mother instinctively, gauging her reaction to my hesitation. "My career is important, but balance is achievable," I answered smoothly, masking discomfort. She continued gently, "Matthew has always wanted many children. Haven't you, darling?" He nodded quietly, his eyes always flickering first to her for approval, even in the smallest choices throughout dinner. On our drive home, Matthew squeezed my hand warmly. "Mom really liked you," he reassured me. I smiled, suppressing the nagging unease that whispered persistently, warning me of deeper issues beneath their careful facade. Our wedding day began bathed in sunlight, each ray streaming through stained glass windows of the old cathedral, painting my ivory dress in soft hues of amber and blue. Everything felt surreal, precisely how I'd imagined, yet a faint heaviness lingered deep within my chest. As the ceremony commenced, I stood beside Matthew, his hand gently holding mine. I glanced at him briefly, trying to catch his eyes, but they were fixed elsewhere, on Eleanor, sitting prominently in the front pew, her expression a mix of pride and possession. After we exchanged vows, it was Eleanor's turn to speak. I expected something brief, perhaps emotional, but nothing prepared me for what unfolded. Eleanor rose gracefully, her presence instantly capturing everyone's attention. Her voice trembled theatrically as she began, "Today is the most meaningful day of my life." She paused dramatically, eyes shining. "To see my son Matthew, my greatest accomplishment, begin a new chapter fills my heart beyond words." She continued, weaving stories of Matthew's childhood, his accomplishments, his devotion, and subtly reminding everyone present of the sacrifices she'd made for him. Guests smiled warmly at first, then shifted slightly, glancing awkwardly between Eleanor, Matthew, and me. I felt invisible. Eleanor's carefully crafted narrative erased my presence, as if the celebration was merely between mother and son, not husband and wife. I instinctively tightened my grip on Matthew's hand, silently urging him to redirect the attention, to reclaim our shared moment. But he remained motionless, gaze fixed on Eleanor, a slight, almost imperceptible nod occasionally punctuating her words. When Eleanor finally concluded her speech, applause erupted hesitantly. Matthew released my hand briefly, stepping forward to embrace his mother. They held each other for an uncomfortable length of time, while I stood isolated. My wedding dress suddenly heavy, the lace scratching against my skin. As the reception continued, friends and colleagues approached with forced smiles, murmuring polite congratulations. Lisa hugged me tightly, whispering in my ear, Are you all right? I forced a composed smile, nodding silently. My professional self-calm, logical insisted this was merely Eleanor's inability to let go, an emotional outburst understandable in context. Yet my instinct screamed louder, a painful realization crystallizing within me. Eleanor wasn't simply letting go. She had never intended to. Matthew returned to my side eventually, smiling apologetically, oblivious to my turmoil. "Sorry," he murmured softly. "You know how Mom gets sometimes. She just loves me too much." I stared into his eyes, seeking reassurance, finding instead quiet helplessness, a subtle admission that even he was trapped, willingly or not, within his mother's emotional grasp. As laughter and music swirled around me, I drew a slow breath, steadying my nerves, choosing composure over confrontation. It was my wedding day after all, but beneath my practiced smile, a quiet sadness settled deep inside, an undeniable awareness that my life had subtly shifted, and the boundaries I'd believed could protect me were swiftly dissolving, blurred beneath the weight of someone else's control. Shortly after our wedding, Eleanor's presence began quietly dominating our marriage. Her calls started innocently enough, brief and harmless. But soon they escalated into constant interruptions, carefully timed emergencies pulling Matthew away from me. One midnight, Matthew's phone jolted us awake. "Mom, what happened?" he whispered urgently. I watched him tense, then relax. "I'll be right there," he said quietly, already dressing. "What is it?" I asked cautiously. "Another panic attack," he sighed, resignation in his voice. "Matthew, it's the third this week," I said gently. "Shouldn't you address this differently?" He shook his head, conflicted but unwilling to challenge her. "She needs me." These late-night calls became routine, perfectly timed to disrupt our plans. A romantic dinner, a quiet evening, always interrupted by Eleanor's vague health crises. One evening, as we finally sat down for dinner, Matthew's phone buzzed again. He answered immediately, worry creasing his face. "Chest pains? I'm coming right now." Frustration finally escaped me. "Matthew, have you ever considered these emergencies aren't real?" His eyes widened defensively. "Anna, she's my mother. I can't ignore her." "I'm not asking you to ignore her," I replied softly. "But you need boundaries." He shook his head helplessly. "You don't understand? She's alone." "No," I corrected quietly. "Then she makes sure she's never alone." He stared at me briefly, hurt and confused, then silently walked out, leaving me alone with the harsh truth. Eleanor's crises were calculated, and Matthew, trapped by guilt, couldn't break free. Our marriage, I realized painfully, was slipping beyond my reach. That weekend, I decided to confront Matthew openly about Eleanor's interference. Sitting together at our kitchen table, coffee untouched between us, I began calmly, "Matthew, we need clear boundaries with your mother." He shifted uneasily. "She's just going through a tough phase." "This isn't a phase," I insisted softly. "She's deliberately creating crises to keep you tied to her emotionally. Therapy could help, give us clarity and healthier dynamics." Matthew stiffened, defensive now. "You want therapy because my mother calls me?" "I want therapy to protect our marriage," I responded gently. "It's about boundaries, not punishment." He shook his head stubbornly. "She's older, vulnerable. Therapy would hurt her. I can't." Silence stretched painfully between us. Finally, I spoke quietly, feeling defeated. "Then where does that leave us?" "Please," he pleaded softly, avoiding my gaze. "Just give it more time." As he walked away, I remained alone, realizing Matthew wasn't simply trapped. He was actively choosing his mother's control, leaving our marriage stranded beyond repair. After the failed conversation, I placed all my remaining hope into our planned honeymoon, a trip I'd carefully arranged, believing time away might finally help Matthew see clearly, away from Eleanor's persistent grip. I meticulously prepared everything: luxurious accommodations, intimate dinners, quiet moments I hoped would remind Matthew why we chose each other. As I packed my bags, anxiety mingled uncomfortably with fragile optimism. This felt like my last chance, a final effort to reclaim the intimacy we'd lost. At the airport check-in counter, I handed Matthew our passports, smiling gently, attempting to ease the tension still lingering between us. His expression was distant, oddly distracted. He handed me a boarding pass, avoiding my gaze. Immediately, I felt a strange unease. My ticket was economy class. "Matthew," I asked quietly, confused, "why are our seats separate?" He hesitated briefly, uncomfortable, eyes flickering away. "It must be a mistake. They probably mixed up the booking. I'll sort it out on board." Something felt off, an intuition too strong to ignore. I watched him hurriedly move through security, his shoulders tense, carrying an air of secrecy I couldn't dismiss. Trusting my instincts, I purchased access to the premium lounge, my heart quickening painfully with dread. As I entered the softly lit room, time seemed to slow down. There, in a quiet corner, Matthew sat calmly beside Eleanor, sipping champagne, smiling comfortably. Her hand rested possessively on his arm. In that instant, everything crystallized, the betrayal subtle, yet undeniable, quietly devastating. I stood silently, frozen momentarily by shock. Betrayal settling like cold, undeniable clarity. Matthew looked up suddenly, our eyes meeting. Surprise and guilt flashed across his face. Eleanor glanced my way, calm and unsurprised, her expression carefully neutral but victorious. No tears fell, no angry words came. I simply turned quietly, walking calmly away, dignity still intact despite the emotional storm raging inside me. In that painful moment, I finally understood the truth. Matthew had never intended to choose me. Eleanor had orchestrated every detail, even our honeymoon. As I exited the airport, a profound sense of clarity filled me, painful but liberating. My marriage was irretrievably broken, but for the first time, I was no longer afraid to accept it. When I stepped out of the airport and into the cool evening air, something strange settled over me. A clarity, quiet and unwavering. Despite the sharp sting of betrayal lingering deep inside, my professional instincts took over, gently reminding me to breathe, stay calm, and confront the truth I'd long avoided. I drove home slowly, each streetlight sliding past seemed to illuminate the reality I had stubbornly refused to accept. Matthew wasn't a victim trapped by his mother's manipulation. He had chosen this path. He was comfortable within Eleanor's carefully woven web, willingly forfeiting our marriage rather than setting boundaries. Entering our silent apartment, I closed the door gently behind me. The space was untouched, just as we'd left it, our luggage still standing neatly by the front door. I sank into the sofa, feeling the day's weight pressing upon me, but curiously I shed no tears. Instead, my mind felt clearer, sharper, as if finally awakening from a long and restless sleep. The psychologist in me emerged, now calm, analytical, reassuring. I reviewed every moment of our relationship objectively, seeing clearly how I'd repeatedly rationalized Matthew's behavior, excusing Eleanor's manipulations and minimizing my own intuition. The signs had always been there, subtle yet glaringly obvious, waiting patiently for me to acknowledge them. I realized then with gentle acceptance that I had never truly been blind. I'd chosen not to see, guided by the hope that my love and patience could heal Matthew, free him from Eleanor's grasp. But now, facing undeniable proof of their bond, I understood a simple, liberating truth. His healing wasn't my responsibility. It never had been. Standing slowly, I moved through our bedroom, pulling out Matthew's belongings and setting them neatly aside. Each folded shirt, each personal item felt lighter in my hands, as though letting them go was releasing me from a burden I hadn't fully recognized I was carrying. In the quiet rhythm of packing Matthew's things, clarity became strength. I knew exactly what needed to happen next. This was my moment of true awakening, painful but necessary, quiet yet powerful. It was finally time to reclaim my life, to restore my sense of self-respect, and above all, to find my way back to the freedom I deserved. In the days following my quiet realization, I moved swiftly and decisively. It was no longer about anger or hurt. It was simply a necessary step toward freedom, clarity, and healing. I began by carefully gathering Matthew's things, folding his clothes neatly, boxing up his books, personal items, even the photographs that had once symbolized happiness. Each item felt lighter in my hands now, no longer weighed down by sentiment or misplaced hope. When it came to writing the divorce papers, I chose my words carefully, clear, firm, but polite. There was no bitterness, no accusation, only an acknowledgement that our marriage had reached its natural conclusion. Yet in an intentional gesture, I addressed the envelope not to Matthew but directly to Eleanor. It was not petty revenge. Rather, it was an honest recognition of who truly held power over our marriage. It seemed only fitting that she be the first to know it was officially over. When the package was sent, I felt no anxiety or sadness, only calm resolution. Predictably, Matthew called repeatedly that evening, messages pleading softly for understanding and forgiveness. His words rang hollow to me now, echoing a past I had deliberately chosen to leave behind. I allowed each call to go unanswered, each text unread. I knew instinctively and professionally that creating absolute distance was the only way forward. No explanations, no debates, just quiet certainty. Days stretched quietly into weeks, the silence becoming comforting rather than oppressive. Slowly, the space Matthew and Eleanor had occupied in my thoughts diminished, replaced by a growing sense of clarity and newfound purpose. My home, once a battleground of emotional tension, gradually returned to being my sanctuary, a quiet refuge for my own healing. In those quiet moments alone, I began to clearly see the strength I'd reclaimed by walking away from emotional captivity. Buoyed by this newfound sense of liberation, I made a silent promise to myself to never again silence my instincts, never again surrender control of my happiness to another. This quiet, firm commitment felt empowering, a deep and lasting realization that my life, my happiness, and my freedom were now firmly, unapologetically in my own hands. In the weeks following my decision to fully let go, I turned inward, consciously beginning my journey of self-therapy. For years, I had guided others through their emotional mazes. Now it was finally my turn to apply the same compassion, patience, and analytical clarity toward my own heart. Each evening after work, I sat quietly in my study, carefully reviewing my past decisions, not with judgment, but with gentle curiosity. I revisited each critical moment with Matthew, understanding clearly now how often I had ignored my instincts, rationalizing warning signs as minor inconveniences. Through careful self-analysis, I recognized patterns of self-denial I'd unintentionally developed over years of seeking harmony above authenticity. Yet rather than feeling regret, I found solace and empowerment in this newfound clarity. My mistakes became valuable lessons, insights I carefully noted down, allowing myself to internalize their wisdom fully. As days turned into weeks, I felt an undeniable peace settle deeply within me. Slowly, the heaviness lifted, replaced by a calm sense of renewal. By gently confronting my past, I'd freed myself from lingering self-doubt, reconnecting deeply with my core values and my true sense of self. My apartment, once haunted by disappointment, now embraced me gently, a sanctuary for quiet reflection and healing. Each morning, I awoke feeling stronger, lighter, more centered fully myself once again. Through this deliberate, mindful healing, I finally understood the most powerful truth of all. Genuine healing comes not from escaping the past, but from courageously facing it, understanding it, and then peacefully letting it go. Months passed, and as my inner strength solidified, life quietly guided me toward David. Our meeting wasn't dramatic, just a casual encounter at a mutual friend's dinner. But the ease of our connection felt instantly comforting. David, a calm, emotionally mature man, carried a quiet independence and warmth that felt refreshingly genuine. With his young daughter Emma, he embodied a gentle stability I'd unknowingly yearned for. Our relationship unfolded naturally, quietly respectful of boundaries and rich with mutual understanding. David understood life's complexities, respecting my space and emotional journey without intrusion or expectation. Around him, I felt a deep sense of peace, stability, and safety, something I'd never truly experienced before. In this healthy, balanced bond, I realized clearly how love was meant to feel. No control, no hidden agendas, just quiet companionship, respect, and authentic connection. Finally, I understood that real happiness wasn't something I had to compromise or fight for. Instead, it came naturally, softly, effortlessly, and most importantly, freely. With David and Emma by my side, I knew with absolute certainty that I'd fully reclaimed myself, finally finding the true freedom and happiness I'd always deserved. Thank you all for watching this video. Please comment and let me know what you think about this story. Please like and subscribe to watch more great content on my channel.